Amy and Christina, two moms who learned the hard way that there's a lot we wish we knew about pregnancy and parenting.
So now we're asking experts all the questions, sharing what we've learned and what we're still figuring out, and keeping it real along the way. Welcome to What I Wish I Knew. Okay, friends, we're back for season 2, and this episode is jam-packed. We sat down with Jessica Rolph, the co-founder of Lovevery, which, if you're living under a rock, is a company that creates play kits and toys for kids that are based on specific age and stage development.
Both Christina and I have used Lovevery toys with our own kids, and we're thrilled to talk to Jessica about why she cares so much about play and how her own parenting experience led her to co-found this company, now bringing in over $200 million annually, all while remaining incredibly humble and warm.
This company isn't just about changing the lives of children. It's making parenthood easier and way more fun. Let's dive right in. Jessica, not to jump right into it, but like Lovevery has been so monumental in my second child. Like I cannot even tell you. It's in a way that I never thought I needed. But like my husband is obsessed with the little booklets that come on how to engage with your child. Like he has taken such a renewed interest in a way that he didn't with Anna. Not that he wasn't interested in Anna, but like he is so invested in Olivia's growth and development and doing all the things that those booklets say that your team wrote and you wrote. And so like, thank you so much, because it has involved him so much more deeply as a parent and as a husband that like now playtime is his time. I'm like, you got this. Like you let me know how often she needs to be on her tummy and I will follow suit.
That is amazing. That is such an amazing thing to hear. That was my dream and goal. I love the name of your podcast, by the way, What I Wish I Knew, because everything with Lovevery is something that I didn't have for my children, but it's so meaningful for me to hear of these experiences that you're having with the guidebook or the information and the playthings that, and, these moments with your baby. It is, a lot of people say I'm not a baby person. And sometimes dads say, I can't wait to engage with the child when they're a little older. But it's more about just not knowing what the baby wants to do and what will light them up. And so what we try to do at Lovevery is really give that guidance and that support so that parents really can tune in to their baby and connect deeply and more meaningfully by giving them experiences they're craving. And then you all of a sudden become a baby person because you're having fun with them and you know how to play with them and you're enjoying them. So
the toys are not these like gross, like abysmal plastic things that you just like want to put away and not play with, and you bring them out because you're like, oh, it keeps their attention, but like I hate them. They're beautiful and well made and easy to clean. Like we are both Lovevery stands, obviously, but I echo what Christina said on behalf of every parent who has absolutely no idea what to do with their babies. A heartfelt thank you, sincere thank you. And we are going to keep using those toys until they are on their last legs. And that is probably going to be a while. So
they do last, and they also circle back. So isn't it so fun to see how they evolve and grow and how their interests and skills really build even as infants, as babies?
Yeah.
It's so amazing. Yes. We could do another podcast about the not sweet stages, but that's not inspiring.
I know.
Yeah. We try to stay inspiring. So anyway, welcome to What I Wish I Knew. We've gone into it, but welcome. We're so happy to have you, Jessica.
I love your I've been listening to your episodes. I wish I had this podcast when my kids were your age. So when my kids were young. So it's great. You're doing great work. You've got great guests. Really great format. You both are so dynamic. Excited to be here.
Thank you.
That might make me cry. Like,
it's true. It's true. It's such good advice.
We actually just saw yesterday that Gwyneth Paltrow liked one of our reels, and we were texting each other like, we've made it. Gwyneth Paltrow tangentially knows that we exist.
That is so cool. That's
cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any of those moments with Lovevery where you were like, oh my God, this person's talking about Lovevery? Like, I've made it.
Yeah. I'm celebrating right now. The fact that the two of you are telling me these stories, I run into somebody at the airport. I try to give them a free coupon, and they're like, oh, "I'm already a customer," and it's so amazing. Like, what? Wait,
Oh,
I don't know you, and we're not friends of friends of friends. You're already a customer. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really incredible.
Yeah.
So.
Like I invented something that strangers use.
Yeah. And my daughter's in one of the books, but you'll get in a little bit. And so when it's really fun when we're traveling and my husband and my daughter are in the books. And so sometimes they'll get recognized and it's so cute. They're like,
that's really
bee,
cute.
bee. It's so cute.
So, can you tell us a little bit about how, being a parent yourself now for, well, how old is your oldest? 14 years? Is he
Yes.
14? Yes.
Yes.
Like, how did that help you or motivate you to create Love Every?
Yeah. So my first company was an organic baby food company. So I co-founded Happy Baby. And in that process, I felt like I really understood everything there was to know about organic nutrition. But I really didn't understand what was going on with my child's development. So I remember being on the floor with all these plastic, toys and flashing light toys. And we had this alphabet mat. And I was like, I'm going to just have a moment of connection. I'm going to play with my baby. And I remember watching my now 14-year-old pull himself up to one of those, those tabletop toys where there's all the stuff that happens on the top. And he pushed a button and I don't know, a cow popped out and music started playing and lights were flashing and all these things were happening. And I remember wondering what was going on with him and his development, but also I was wanting to connect with him. I mean, yes, it's great to have your child be entertained, but I was also looking to play with him.
Mhm.
And I knew the science on nutrition, but I did not know the science on early childhood development and brain development. And so I had gotten a doctoral thesis. This sounds really, really nerdy. So be willing to come with me here for a minute. I do love going to the science on things, but casually. But I went into this doctoral thesis and I gotten it from my birthing instructor, and it had all of these nerdy ways to engage with your child based on what their brain was craving by each stage. So look at these kind of micro development windows that were opening in a child's brain over time. And it went from birth to 18 months. And it did not talk about when they're rolling over. It did not talk about when they were going to even say their first word. It didn't have any of the sort of quote milestone information. It was actually just tuning in and what the child wanted from their environment. And what I didn't realize is I knew that, we hear the stories that there's all this brain development that's happening from birth to age 5. But what I didn't understand was that the environment that the baby's in and the experiences they have do make a difference in their future. And so this is not meant to be pressury or, stressful by any means, but I was thinking, well, why not think about what their toys are and what they're experiencing during the day, because he spent a lot of time on that mat with all the plastic stuff around him, just kind of playing. And if he's deeply learning about this toy, that if I push this button, then this cow pops out, that's really interesting to him in the moment, but it isn't building the sort of network of associations that something as simple as a box with a sliding top where you have to move your arm laterally to discover the ball that's hidden is teaching a baby. So it's almost the simplicity where the toy doesn't do all the work. That is where the most brain development is happening. And so I started giving out this thesis to everybody I knew. It was like, if I had known you, Amy and Christina, at the time, I would have just been like, oh, you got to check this out. This is so cool. And I found that it really wasn't resonating with people because I'll give you a copy. Anybody
Yes.
can get a copy of this doctoral thesis. I often DM people on Instagram, and I just have a link and I can send it to you. But I find that it's hard to put into practice because you don't have the tools and it's pretty intellectual. And I struggled sometimes to put into practice too. So I was sort of prototyping and sort of trying to figure out how to make the things that could be useful for my baby's experiences. And so that then evolved into becoming Lovevery, because a lot of my friends were like, this is weird. This thesis is weird. I'm not into this. But I thought, but I'd still want to, but it's such valuable information. I want to get it out to families. And so we created the guidebooks that come with the playthings. And we really wanted to develop the stage-based learning program that evolves over time, because, the babies don't come with a guidebook. There's a ton of information on feeding. There's a ton of, information on sleep, but there isn't that much helpful information about play and development with the tools that you need to make that happen in your daily life. So that was the sort of the origin story of Lovevery, if you will.
And I love that you just said cause and effect, because I read the guidebook again the other day and I was like, okay, turning on lights. So I walked around the house with Olivia and we turned on the lights when we went into a room, and then we would go around the room and then we'd leave and I'd turn them off again. And like something just so simple, right? I love that that's part of the guidebooks, that it's like, it's not just the toys. It's also like, what can you do with them in your daily life that's relevant for that stage? And that's another just absolute bonus, like cherry on top for what you offer.
It's not just like, oh, you should talk to your baby. It's like, here's why, here's what it does for them and what they might do in return. And also, like, we know it's kind of weird to talk to a baby who's not talking back. So here are some prompts. Ask them questions like this. Describe what you're doing here. Like, ask the question and then answer it. It just makes it so much easier, because it's like, yeah, what do you do with this baby? A day is a long time with a 3-month-old who doesn't talk yet, who can't really like interact that much with you. So giving parents something to do, and then also reassuring them that this thing that you're doing is actually like great for them. It's great for you. It's great for them. It's so helpful. It leads to better, a happier, healthier baby. It's really incredible if you think about it.
What's so incredible is all the development that's happening in their brains and how much they're taking in. They are taking in so much. There's this concept of receptive and expressive language. So receptive language, to building on what you were saying, Amy, is all the language that a child hears and a young child will hear. And expressive language is them being able to speak themselves, speak their first words, being able to speak sentences. And the language that they're hearing over all of these months of their life really start to build in their brain, that then many, many months later, they're able to express that word. So they're receiving all of this input, and then eventually they're able to speak. And so it's sometimes hard to think of that with a baby, to remember that they're taking in everything and that this time is worth it. And, it's an investment in their future. It's sometimes you're kind of like, just in, they look like little blobs.
They are little
and you want to keep them,
and
you do want to keep them alive, and you do want to, care for yourself and all the things, all the advice the wonderful advice that you have on this podcast. You need to be able to take all of that in. There's a lot to juggle, but just remembering that you're making an investment when you play with them, when you talk to them, when you engage with them. You're making this deep investment that will give back, so many times over as they grow. And it's just a delight to see them start to evolve. And so you have to kind of remember that in those baby years, especially when people are comparing milestones. Yeah. When oftentimes parents are like, oh, my baby, you're at a play group or something and you're kind of worried because your baby isn't rolling over yet, or they're not crawling, or they're not walking, or they're not saying those first words when some other, baby is. It's so important to just tune into your own baby and just tune into yourself and just remember that you're making that connection and that investment and that deep, all your deep love and what you're putting in is going to come out later. And just to try not to compare, because it's about that input that matters the most.
100%. I think back to Amy, your experience with Miller, and then coming into having Marie. I remember you telling me once, like, I'm so scared for maternity leave because I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. I think I'm wondering now, Amy, my question is for you. Now that you've done Lovevery, has that changed for you?
It's totally different. Totally different. I think a lot has changed between Miller and Marie. Miller was my first kid. It was during COVID, so no one could do anything. But also, I didn't really like maternity leave. I felt really untethered and isolated. And with Marie, so we were actually gifted our Lovevery kit from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who are the best. And we can't wait to get them. We can't wait to get them because Miller loves them. I use them all the time. We literally have just like the Lovevery mat that we actually still have ours from Miller. So we didn't have to get a new mat and like the activity like play center. And they're pretty. Again, they're easy to clean. There's just so much about them that brings value to our interactions together as a family. Like, why didn't someone think of this sooner? This is so helpful. I mean, I know we're like kind of gushing about them,
Yeah.
but it's like, what
Sorry,
do
we're
I
obsessed
do?
with you.
Yeah, sorry we're obsessed with you and everything that you create, but they're great. Like they're just great.
I'm so glad to hear that. One of the things that I learned in researching postpartum and the parenting experience is that one of the ways to actually help women in particular move out of kind of some postpartum depression or feeling down is to actually take an interest in your child's development. So this is studied that you actually feel more optimistic if you're interested in your child's development, if you have the tools, if you have the support to be able to understand what's happening with the baby. And I think that this is true with dads too, I will say. And because sleep and feeding, and there are so many things that are so hard, but play, that can be pretty easy if you have some support, and some ideas and some ways to engage. And, I loved Christine, what you said about taking your baby on a house tour. It's so fun. It's so simple. They love to just turn on and off the lights. And there's some very simple things you can do to engage with them that really can make you feel kind of calmer and more connected and better about that early parenting experience. So that is the goal of Lovevery, is to really help parents feel connected to their children and help them feel, like there's optimism in that early parenting experience when things can be so hard.
Yeah. At what stage in your kids' lives did you start conceptualizing Lovevery? And then did you actually use Lovevery like with your youngest at that point? As like, because you mentioned that they're in the book.
Yes. So I never was able to use Lovevery at the appropriate age. I started conceiving of Lovevery with my first, and spent a lot of time thinking about how could I help other families. So I started making my own black and white cards and having my husband get a tube and saw it off from Home Depot. And can you make it about a foot long, so the baby can drop the ball through the tube? I wanted a plastic tube. The tissue boxes, they were mouthing all the tissues. I did feel like worried about what my baby was ingesting and experiencing, because I wasn't making toys, if you will. I was kind of using real life tools.
Yeah.
And that was with my first. And the second started going deeper into other, exploring other Montessori experts and PTs and OTs, and realizing there is so much science on early childhood, but it is not reaching parents in a meaningful, actionable way. So you can take in a ton of stuff on Instagram and save all these posts, but really putting it into action is really hard. And then with my third, that was when I had was wrapping up Happy Family, and I met my co-founder. Well, my co-founder Rod and I have, with Lovevery, have known each other for a really long time because he's married to my best friend. And I was talking to him about this new idea that I had. And he was like, why don't we do this company together? It was so exciting when he said that. And so then we started working on testing prototypes, but we never caught up with B. So my youngest child is now 10. We just launched the reading skill set last year, and it went up to a third grade level, and she's in fourth grade. And every year of life that we would launch. But I did find that when we would launch the 3-year-old products and the 4-year-old products and the play kits and the 2-year-old products, that she was super engaged with the materials, because one misconception is that children kind of use up a toy and then they're done. But I think a lot of parents understand that children come back to learning, and they learn new things from playthings that they've had for a while often. So B did love the, and a little bit my middle child Thatcher did enjoy some of the playthings. We did use them, of course, as models, because I can't, we have all these adorable faces of emotions, but I did need a really sad child. And I was like, well, I think I can only do that with my own daughter, because I'm not going to put some other child in a photo shoot and have them cry and leave them standing. If they're crying at the photo shoot, leave them without comforting them, right? Like when a child starts to cry, you want to, hold them close and comfort them. So I remember putting B, she was wanting me, and I just put her in front of the photographer, and I was like, quick, take the photo so fast. So she is in some of the baby books, and then she's in a bee gets a checkup book. So that was fun. That's just fun.
Another thing I want to go back to is I'd never thought about this before, but you're right, Jessica, that when we talk about babies or even toddlers, we focus so much on their milestones and we learn almost nothing about what is happening to them. Like, I mean, we both have two kids. Christina and I have two kids. And I'm thinking about that now, like, yeah, it's kind of busted. Like, how come I know when Marie's supposed to be rolling or like supposed to be getting teeth, but I don't know when she's supposed to be like understanding a concept of something or like responding to her name in a certain way or like finding joy in being able to grab something smaller than, this size. We don't really get taught that as parents or given that information almost anywhere now that I think about it, right?
Yeah, that's what I found too. I found that, I would get checklists from the pediatrician. You can always get, like you could get the books, what to expect, and they'll do kind of like checklists of development. But I didn't get the sort of micro development windows or interests that were
Right.
unfolding over time. And that's why that at Lovevery, I wanted to give that to parents. I wanted to in an actionable, easy way to digest. But there's a gap in those first 3 years of life, especially of what is happening. And thank you for the checklist, but I want to know more. How can I be a part of this? Because the real truth is that, again, we're about half our genetics and we're half our experiences, roughly. I mean, really hard to. But if you talk to a neuroscientist, they would say something like that. There is experience as part of it. And so nobody has really been like, okay, well, what is the optimal experience? How can I give my child what they're hungry to learn at each stage, as opposed to just, kind of letting things unfold? They will unfold developmentally. Absolutely. Children will develop. But if they're given more language, for example, or more experiences to connect with their parents, their development is enhanced. I mean, it's just a fact. We really wanted to support parents with that knowledge and make it not intimidating, because we don't want to put more pressure on parents, because, of course, we're all, we want it to bring joy as opposed to bringing another to-do list.
Right. Well, it's toys. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
so let's do like a Cliff's Notes version of like every development stage.
Yes.
This is not like a quiz, but
yes, but maybe it is. Let's see.
kind of a little bit. So like, can we go like by year, maybe like
Yes.
0 to 1, like kind of what's happening in a macro level?
Yes, maybe the way I'll answer this to be most useful for anyone listening, maybe I can just give an overview of what parents can do to optimize each stage, or to give their child the best experiences. So there's a lot happening in that first year. There's so many changes happening. I would say the very beginning part is visual development. So when a baby comes out of the womb, their senses, their sense of taste and sense of hearing, and even touch is developed, but their eyesight, because they haven't had practice in the womb, their eyes are really the key way that they're wanting to take in the world, but that it craves the most experiential development. So, because when you think about it, babies can't, reach for things yet. They can't move their limbs with coordination. And so they're really looking out to the world. So we focus a lot on eye development in those first few months. Babies love high contrast. They love to look at high contrast images. And there's certain patterns that are most appealing to babies. And this does really build that brain-eye connection. Then it kind of moves into, Amy, you had mentioned, what are the concepts that they're learning? Object permanence is one of them. So that an object will that an object that I see can be hidden, but that is still there, that it can disappear and reappear. And so we have a lot of kind of work around object permanence. The other theme that begins is containment. What can contain something and what cannot contain something. So they love, for example, pots and pans and dumping and later filling. But the research shows that if you give your baby a tube, which is so interesting, it's so simple, right? A tube where something will fall out. They can put it in, but it will fall out. At a certain age, that the baby actually has a much deeper, richer understanding of this concept of containment because they see what does not contain. It's so interesting. So there's a lot of kind of these themes that begin in that first year that then go through for years. I would say in language for the early months, the most useful is to just talk to your baby in that high, natural voice, that sing-songy voice. And what you said, Amy, earlier, about how it's hard to talk to a baby that's not talking back. Just try to talk to them from infancy, and then around 6 months, you might notice yourself almost doing this naturally, but starting to point out things to them, like starting to kind of focus on nouns or functional words. And then later, towards 1, you start to kind of say things like under, over, up, down, and start to talk about, this kind of functional language. So that's the sort of early communication. One quick tip is oftentimes when your baby just makes a grunt or a sound or looks at something, they're communicating with you, and just pause and take in that communication and just give them a little grunt back or a little or talk about what they're looking at or something. So there's this back and forth communication. We think it often happens when they're speaking and talking to you, but it actually happens much earlier, that you can have this sort of back and forth engagement.
Listen, Jessica, if anybody were to listen in on our house at any point, they would think I was crazy because I mimic any sound that comes out of Olivia's mouth, like even raspberries. I'm like, oh,
That is so amazing.
She did what now? Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is so amazing. Like, it's so healthy. I mean, Christina, that is honestly, if I were to pick the number one thing, it wouldn't actually be, I'd love to say it's Lovevery. We want to help you. We want to support you, but it is that language input in those early years that can make such a difference. So, and you can
Gold
do that.
star for you, Christina.
Yeah.
You get a trophy.
I'm just generating these like really chatty kids. That's my goal in life.
You go chatty kids.
Don't stop talking.
And then 1 is, they're moving, they're on the move. Often they're, my children didn't walk until later. They're scooting, they're pulling up to stand, they're moving. I would say that if you can give your child this sort of progression of fine motor challenges, so we have these little carrots that go into this top, and the child, they're sticky, and then the child has to work to push them through. And then you can put in the next lid, which is a coin where they have to rotate their wrist and figure out how to slot the coin through. And then it progresses to these smaller holes. Fine motor is actually linked in some ways. All development is linked to each other. So if you give your baby fine motor experiences, it actually can help promote their language development. If you give your baby certain physical experiences, it can also help them, gross motor also connects to the language centers of the brain.
How? Why?
Because
that's so intriguing.
Yeah, it is really intriguing. The brain is networked. And so there's all these different kind of experiences that can spark development in other areas of the brain. So, we know this, I think, in some ways intuitively when we're, kind of physically, let's say we're on a run and we have these new ideas and creative ideas because we're moving our bodies, we're having a fresh insight on something. That also happens for your baby's brain. And so I think a lot of the things that we try to give families is, a holistic development approach, progression of puzzles that are challenging to a child. And we also have, books that are really useful they can actually start to understand empathy and emotion at 1. It's really amazing. We have this one book with this little boy who skins his knee at the park. This is the book I wanted for my children. I remember having Leland on my lap, my oldest, and thinking, okay, we're reading I Love You, Stinky Face, and we're reading all these cute illustrated books. They're great. But I also remember wishing that we had a real a book that with photorealistic images of a child literally just scraping his knee at the park. I was like, Leland would be transfixed because they're so interested in getting hurt and experiences that are a part of their world, like going down a slide at a park, that these universal experiences, they want to see those mirrored back to them. This is very much of a Montessori principle. You give your child real life before you give them fantasy. And so we have this book of Max called Max and Nana. And it's it's this little boy who's running and skins his knee. We did Photoshop some blood on. Oftentimes people wonder how we did this book. We used quite a bit of Photoshopping, and the crying image was when we first got to the set. He was the little boy was very cold, and he was told that he was he was going to be a sad child in the book. He was needing to be sad, and we always cast older children for younger books. And so we just got this really fast shot. We just put him on his belly, took the photo, and then we comforted him and then pretended like he got a boo-boo. Anyway, so you start to realize that your 1-year-old will turn to this page and they will linger on the page. Some children actually kind of cry alongside Max. Other children might have like a laughing response. So this empathy is starting to build in a 1-year-old's brain. It's incredible to see. You start to really understand them. I hope this isn't going on too long. Now we're at 2. Now we're at age 2. We still have a couple more years left in your question. But at 2, there is a huge amount of intellectual development happening that parents often underestimate because they're 2. They're starting to talk. They want to explore. They're learning so much, but they can actually make really interesting comparisons. They can start to match. They can make cause and effect inferences, and they can understand spatial concepts. And so our 2-year-old year is also very much focused on what children are delighted by, which is they love to play with water, and so we have like a water element in every single one of the 2-year-old years. We have this we call it the super sustainable sink. It's recirculating water. The children love to just pour and look at the experiences. They're learning so much through water play. We also have this little spray bottle that helps a child, clean something that's from the 1-year-old year that they start to really get interested in the 2-year-old year also. And we have all these kind of experiences and puzzles, and they can start to understand math and this concept of one-to-one correspondence. So there is a ton of development happening at 2 that parents, I think, are, that 2s are just, it might be my favorite age. If I was pinned down and forced to pick, I think it would be 2.
You're so brave.
Okay, they say the terrible 2s. I think it's really 3 when it starts to get.
I agree with that, actually. Yeah. I agree with that. But 2-year-olds are actively trying to die all the time. I mean, they are. True. They take so much of your physical energy, which was tough for me, I think. I mean, I think they're delightful too, and every age really has gotten better. Yes. But 2 was tiring.
Literally, I remember
it is very tiring
being at the lake with Anna, and because 2 was also when the throwing rocks into water was really popular.
Yes.
And I remember looking away for a hot second, and in that hot second, she had fallen and rolled into the lake. I was like, how? You know what I mean? Actively trying to die.
Yeah.
Well, I will admit I do. My husband is not on board with this, but if I could just orchestrate my life to be a foster parent someday and just always have a 2-year-old in my life, I would do it. I'm not kidding you. I really love to.
Entertainment today.
They're so cute. So if you look at the first kind of beginning of development at the beginning of 2 and then look at the end of 2, there's just incredible development that's happening. We think about kind of just different tracks of cognitive development. So there's spatial awareness and math learning and pattern recognition. And then there's also sensorial learning, that they're having from experiences. So there's just a lot happening. Again, the language is so important to continue to develop by now that they're saying more words, just really build on those words and talk back to them and have that back and forth engagement. So, and then 3, we call it the year of self when they do start to get independent. And that's when I think some of the pushback comes. And when I remember feeling I was maybe in a public space, and my 2-year-old's just throwing just an adorable little fit, or having a hard time, or but they're so cute. They're just 2. But then at 3, you're like, oh man, I better figure out this parenting thing. I better really start to understand what I'm doing around limit setting and loving limits, and being able to be thoughtful about how we're approaching their emotional development and my relationship with them. So we have a lot around emotional development in 3, and it's really, the year of the self. So I would say that there's a lot that's happening. One of the things that we've realized that I did not give my children was you can actually begin to give them early experiences around literacy and reading at 3. It's incredible.
What does that look like?
We partnered. It looks like letter sound recognition. So we oftentimes will sing the alphabet, and we'll understand. I can recognize my letters and my name. But if you start to teach them letter sounds, the sounds the letters make. So we have a letter sound puzzle, for example, that goes through the most common sounds of letters. They will then, that's sort of the beginning process of learning to read. Then they can start to later on be able to speak learn those sounds, start to blend very basic words. So we did launch a learn to read program called the Reading Skill Set that we recommend starting. You could start as early as 3, also can start at 4, all can start at 5. There's no need, but if you notice that your child is interested in these things, so they can start a little bit more of that, what we typically think of as academic. It's just sometimes they're just naturally interested in starting to learn and get.
That would be Miller.
Exposure.
That would be Amy's son Miller. I remember going to visit them around Christmas time and like holding him. How old was he when I came? Was he 3?
Yeah, he was not yet 3.
He was not yet 3, but identifying letters. And I was, and Anna, my oldest, did not, do that until like a year later.
But Anna. So Miller is extremely academically minded. Like his brain is insane. But I also remember that around that same time, Christina, Anna was in a Montessori school. And we were talking about letters, and I was like bragging on Miller, like, oh, he's so smart. And Christina was like, yeah, well, Anna learned how to wash a window today. She can wash all our windows now. And I was like, yeah, Miller won't do that.
I think she was also riding her scooter by then. Like Anna is just very physically gifted, right?
Yes.
And when I say gifted, I just mean she's just coordinated.
Yeah. Highly coordinated. Yeah. Yes, agree.
But it just goes to show you how different children are, right? Like, and they just, they do different things at different times, but they're still wonderful. They actually met for the first time, Jessica, like 2 weeks ago, because I'm around where Amy lives. And, it was actually really beautiful. It was so cool.
They got along great. They really, it was great.
Besties making besties.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right. Next up, Marie and Olivia.
Fun. Yeah.
That is so fun. You said something really interesting about, that children are also different. They absolutely are. And then there also is this sort of thread of common interests that most children go through these development windows within-ish, plus or minus, when they get into the toddler years, it's like plus or minus a few months. But they all tend to be, if you give them these experiences, they tend to be interested in similar things. They definitely have their own personalities, their own interests, their own abilities, but they also have this sort of commonality that they're, if you can expose them to, the kind of things that they're craving to learn, that they will tune in.
Well, and that's the whole point of, I'm assuming all of the very, very rigorous research that goes into the development of your products, you're dealing with lots of kids that are very different, but all going through the same like developmental milestones or like exercises. And that, I'm assuming that's how you end up with the products that you have, because you're like, okay, yeah, we tested like this type of thing on this age, and all of them wanted to do the same thing, which the toy didn't do. So I think we probably should switch the toy so it does this thing that these kids keep trying to do with this thing, all different kids, but kind of seeing it the same way.
That's exactly it. And then we also find that sometimes if a child isn't interested right away in something, that we really encourage the parent to just introduce it a little bit later. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes we get testimonials from parents, especially even in the baby year, like, oh, my baby wasn't interested in this thing when it first came, but then wow, 2 months later, they were so into it. So it is, it varies by a little bit plus or minus, but you're absolutely right. That is our process.
Yeah. Is
Um,
that something that you wish parents knew more about play? Because, like, let's be honest, social media has painted this picture of like what parenthood looks like, what child development might look like, and milestones as we talked about. So like, what do you wish that parents knew about like social media versus what actually matters?
okay, so my social media feed is incredible. I am following everyone and getting all the advice. And if I were a parent of a child that was a baby, a toddler, because that's what my feed is, I would be so overwhelmed.
Hmm.
And I do think that my kids, we didn't have this phenomenon of all these experts and all this advice and all these, you've got to get this right thing and you've got to optimize this over here. And I think what we hope that can be a through line for Lovevery is we really have distilled it down into what you need to know right when you need to know it.
Mm-hmm.
So the timing really matters. So oftentimes you're taking in information. It's very overwhelming to think about
Hmm.
something ahead or look back and be like, I didn't do that. Or I can't, I've got to remember to save this information for the future. So we're really trying to help parents just what you need to know, right? When you need to know it in a calm way and in a supportive way. Because it used to be that there wasn't enough information and now there's almost too much. And we
Hmm.
do need to distill it down into what's relevant and important for building that connection and giving you peace of mind as a parent, as opposed to there's no benefit to having a parent feel frazzled or feel like they're not doing enough or they're not taking in enough. We want to help parents feel confident. Our whole goal is confident parents, connected parents, children that are thriving. That's the goal.
Yeah, to be more present, because I think that's what
Yes.
this overload and this, it's honestly decision fatigue, right? Like, how many decisions are we making a day? Over 35,000 or something was a statistic I saw. So,
Yeah,
like, to
insane.
remove decisions from us, like, you're nailing target audience on the head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agree.
Not
Agree.
not two
And
marketing people talking, but
yeah, I know. But also to that point, Jessica, the fact that these toys don't necessarily like age out the way that some other like age-based toys would. And again, I mentioned this earlier, Miller, who's 4.5, will happily sit for 35 minutes, 45 minutes and play with Marie with these toys. That's also helpful because you don't have to then continuously be getting new things and then rotating the old things out. Like,
Yeah.
you just have toys that they can go and play with, that you can offer to them and be delighted in how they interact with them differently than they did a week or a month ago. You don't have that like mental load with these toys, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that I love the sibling play. I mean, they all do have their own experiences, but it is so nice with a younger sibling. And I oftentimes tell this to people with 3 children because it's hard to juggle the really investing in each one of your children and giving them those experiences when you have a second or a third or it's so helpful to have the guidance and then the playthings that are useful. It can really just make that older sibling feel so confident.
yeah.
Yeah, I
I
love
want
that.
to touch on something you just said because you were talking about quality time with each of them. I want to hear your take on mythical balance. This unicorn that apparently exists. Like, how are you tackling quality time with each of your children and a demanding career? I mean, you're currently recording with us while you're on vacation. Thank you, by the way,
Yes. Well, my
for
kids just
doing
went to a
that.
camp, so it's okay.
Okay. But what's your take on balance for parents who have careers and kids?
Yeah, it is such a good question. I would say that it's always easy to look at the other side of your situation and feel longing for what you don't have. So oftentimes I'll think about, oh, if I could just be reborn, I would homeschool all my kids and I would I would really love to just go so deep into their learning. And then I take it one more step further and I'm like, I don't know that that would actually be great for my kids at this point. I kind of talk to them and they're like, Mom, we love that you have a career. We love that you're into, that your ambition is oriented towards something. If you put all of your ambition into us, that might be too much. It might be
Yeah.
overwhelming. Um, but I also think that it's really easy I hear this a lot. If you've got the opportunity to stay at home with your child, that you often feel like you're missing something, like you're going to lose an edge, you're going to miss out on an opportunity. And I just really think that it's so important I'm this far in, I have, my kids are much older than your kids. I'm older than both of you. And I just think it's thinking about trying to really be present and enjoy what you have. I do feel like I am able to be present with my children when I'm with them. And sometimes the travel gets hard. And there are times when I feel out of sync and I just need to, pare it back. Or there's times that I need to do more work because the business needs it, or I need to invest more time into something and I can't have time with the kids. But I think there is this sort of, if you can kind of really just tune in and appreciate the choices that you've made, I think that it can be a real gift to yourself, because it's so easy to look to the other side and think and long for something different than what you have.
That grass is always greener concept.
Oh, comparison is the thief of joy is one of my favorite sayings, but also so hard to apply to yourself, because it's so easy to just, like you said it so eloquent, long for something that's different than what you have. And I don't know, for me, it helps to think like I'm doing the best that I can. I'm doing a good job. I'm doing what feels right for me and my family. Even if sometimes short term it's hard, you miss bedtime, or you aren't as present because you had a stressful day or whatever you're feeling. But it's such a good perspective, that everyone feels that way.
Yeah, truly. Okay, this is something we ask everybody that comes on because we are called What I Wish I Knew. So we're going to end with, can you tell us something that you wish you knew about parenting before you went into it?
It's such a good question. I wish that I knew not to worry so much about all of the different behaviors. Let's just talk about, kind of like the stress that it is to parent, especially the hardest part for me is managing not emotions and not being empathetic, but managing limit setting. To be honest, like I just want to empathize with my children. It's super hard for me I want to give them, what they're looking for. And it's just very hard for me to, and so we actually are working on this at Lovevery. And I think there are a lot of resources out there now, but I did not have those resources. I was really looking for a way to find, a plan so that my husband and I could get on the same page, because he tends to be more strict and authoritative. And then I tend to be more empathetic and, and lenient. And then there's the tension that can create over, just all of this sort of parenting years. I think I wish that I'd had better resources or better information or a better plan for how to navigate that, because I feel like that's that's one of the messiest, hardest places, especially if you're different from your partner. If you're co-parenting, that can be really hard. So we're working on something at Lovevery that hopefully will be of support, but there is also so many great resources out there that are, free on Instagram, books and experts. There's a lot more now than there was when my kids were little.
Totally. Jessica, I empathize with you. That's something that I'm currently going through with my oldest, is figuring out what are the limits, what are the boundaries, and how firm do I have to be? And a lot of it was influenced by social media, where it's like, you have to be a gentle parent, you have to empathize. But then I think I did too much, and then now it's like, okay, this isn't what she needs at this age. And so I was talking to my parents yesterday about how I need to change my own parenting style. And to change that while she's changing is a lot of change.
Yes. Yes, but they are adaptable, and you can begin again every day. You can begin again with your child. You can begin again with parenting. And I would often find these kind of cycles of renewal, and we're still working on it now. It's maybe never ending. I don't know. I don't think my mom would say that that this is a struggle for her right now with me, but it lasts a long
Boundary
time.
setting with you.
There's but I don't know when it ended, but it's a long process, the parenting.
So where can people find you and Lovevery?
So it's lovevery.com. So LOVEVERY.com. And then we have we have an Instagram account, Love Every on Instagram. I also have a personal account. If you did want the doctoral thesis, I can send it to you. And I'm just, I will send it to you. I'm Jessica Rolph. So ROLPH.
Thank you so much for spending this last time with us. We've learned a lot. We are grateful for you. We're your biggest fans. We will use your coffee mugs.
That was the other thing, is the days are long, but the years are short. And we try to gift that to every new parent, because it is the other thing that I wish I knew, is that these days that feel so long really do go by so quickly.
They do.
It's like a blink of an eye. It's like that Kenny Chesney song. I can't listen to that.
Don't blink.
Right.
Stop it. I'm too emotional.
It's emotional.
No one needs to hear me singing anyway. So, Jessica, yes, thank you. Oh, I loved this conversation. We learned so much, so I can only imagine the questions that are going to come after this.
Oh, Amy and Christina, it has been such a pleasure talking to two of you. So thank you so much for having me.
If you found something helpful, insightful, or just plain reassuring in this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you have a moment, leaving a quick review helps more parents find us.
We're also always looking for great guests, so if you know someone or that someone is you, please reach out. You can find us at whatiwishiknew_ or whatiwishiknew.life.
Thanks for listening. And until next time, stay sane, stay calm, or at least fake it until bedtime.